Continuing on with our study on the commands of Jesus. Before we get to our command for the day, this fits our theme, we're going to take a quiz. Pop quiz time. But maybe you know some of the answers to these questions. All of these questions are true or false. So you have, right out of the gate, a 50% chance of answering all of these questions correctly. We're not going to do a show of hands or anything. You just answer them in your head, and you can score it yourself. There are going to be 10 of these questions of true or false. And we're going to go through them one at a time. So, true or false? These are all Bible related, by the way. The women of Israel danced when Goliath was killed by David. Is that true or false? The women of Israel danced when Goliath was killed by David. The answer is true. 1 Samuel chapter 18, in case you are fact-checking me. Question number 2, true or false? Hannah made a robe every year for her son. True or false? That is true. Some of you guys are answering out loud. I said answer in your head. Okay, don't help out these people who don't know their Bible. This is how they learn that they need to know their Bible. Question number 3. True or false? In 1 Samuel, Jonathan and David made a covenant of friendship. In 1 Samuel, Jonathan and David made a covenant of friendship. Now, when I say it like that, that makes you think, doesn't it? The answer is true. It's at the end. It's 1 Samuel chapter 20. Question number 4. The priest of Nod gave Saul's sword to David. The priest of Nod gave Saul's sword to David. That is false. He gave David Goliath's sword. That's in 1 Samuel chapter 21. Question number 5. Saul massacred 85 priests in the town of Nazareth. True or false? Saul massacred 85 priests in the town of Nazareth. That is false. That is false. He did massacre 85 priests. Does anybody know where it was, where that happened? Nob. Yep. Question number 6. David was the last king of Judah. Answer in your head. B. That is false. Although you could, some people could be like, well, spiritually speaking, that's not what we're not talking spiritually speaking. Zedekiah was the last king of Judah. True or false? Elisha's servant's name was Gehazi. That is true. 2 Kings chapter 4. Question number 8. Elisha supplied a widow with large quantities of milk and honey. True or false? That is false. He supplied her with oil. And that was the miracle, right? Of like as many containers that she had, they would be filled with oil. Number 9, we're almost done here. For lying to the prophet Elisha, Gehazi was turned into a leper. True or false? That is true. The last one, Elisha's servant had a vision of the hills filled with horses and chariots of fire. True or false? That is true. It's in 2 Kings chapter 6. How did you do? Pretty good. Brian, you said you got a B? B is pretty good. In my book, anyways, B is great. This is what you get when you ask Google to write you a quiz on Bible information, true false quiz. That's what it gave me. Those are all correct. I fact checked Google to make sure that it was giving me the right information. But why does this matter? Does it matter that we get information correctly when we're talking about the Bible? Or really, does truth matter in your life? Because the command that we're going to be talking about this morning is do not take an oath. Do not take an oath. AV booth, can you help me out? There it is. Do not take an oath. Matthew chapter 5, verses 33 through 37. It says, "Again, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is the footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what you say simply be yes or no. Anything more than this comes from evil. We also see this briefly in the section that we've covered before over in chapter 23 of Matthew, when we talk about the 7 woes to the Pharisees in verses 16 through 22. It says, "Woe to you, blind guides, who say, if anyone swears by the temple, it is nothing, but if anyone swears by the gold of the temple, he is bound by his oath. You blind fools, for which is greater, the gold or the temple that has made the gold sacred? And you say, if anyone swears by the altar, it is nothing. But if anyone swears by the gift that is on the altar, he is bound by his oath. You blind men, for which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? So whoever swears by the altar swears by it and everything on it. And whoever swears by the temple swears by it and by him who dwells in it. And whoever swears by heaven swears by the throne of God and by him who sits upon it." Truth is precious. It is valuable. I mean, think about just not even in a biblical context. Think about how useful truth is in our lives. Is the water drinkable or not? You want to know the truth here. Like, you don't tell me what you think I want to hear. Tell me the truth, right? Are you a friend or an enemy? Will you keep your marriage vows, or are you only interested in my money? Yeah, I want to know the truth to that question. Do you have enough fuel on the plane to reach the destination? Truth becomes very important in these contexts. Will the surgery leave me worse or better than I was before? Those who mock the concept of truth are people who do not need to appeal to truth for their lives. There might be professors who claim that there is no such thing as absolute truth, but that is only because they have the power or security to entertain their students with academic games without being forced to apply their logic to their own lives. For all of us, truth matters. Jesus loved the truth and hated deceit. I mean, we see this in these two passages that we just read, but also in Mark 10, verse 19. You know the commandments. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not bear false witness, do not defraud. In Mark 7, verses 21 and 22, it says, For from within, out of the heart of man, come evil thoughts, sexual immorality, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. We just read what he thinks about it in Matthew chapter 23. When he's talking to the scribes and Pharisees, he calls them hypocrites. He says, For you travel across sea and land to make a single proselyte, and when he becomes a proselyte, you make him twice as much a child of hell as yourselves. John 8, verse 44, he says, You are of your father, the devil, and your will is to do your father's desires. He is a murderer from the beginning. He does not stand in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks out of his own character, for he is a liar, the father of lies. Lying originates with Satan. I mean, Satan, we see him telling the first lie in the Bible, deceiving Eve, and those who turn away from speaking the truth join forces with him. But Jesus came into the world to reveal truth about God and man and salvation and what is right and what is wrong. At the very end of his ministry and his life, he is being questioned by Pontius Pilate. And Pilate said to him, "So you are a king?" And Jesus answered, "You say that I am king. For this purpose I was born, and for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." And Pilate's response was, "What is truth?" People seem to be asking that question a lot these days. Is there such a thing as absolute truth? Scott, you had your hand up.
You mentioned college professors, I guess, as an example of really smart people. And it's interesting. You also, the Pharisees were smart people too. They were well educated. But it comes down to what you really want to do. These people, they're smart. It just gives them the ability to come up with more interesting ways of ignoring the truth. The Pharisees, in their knowledge, and they did have a desire for to do God's will, but they were so full of themselves that they would reason ways to avoid the truth, just like people who are of the world may be very smart. Unfortunately, they want to serve self, and therefore they think of really, really interesting ways of avoiding the truth for themselves.
Yeah. Interesting or clever is another word that I would use. Phil?
I think that society tends to change the way we look at things and the way we say things. Now it's not unusual for, you may not tell a lie, but you won't tell the whole truth. And so to me, that's the same as telling a lie if you don't tell all the facts. Used to be, when I was a kid a couple years ago, if someone said they were going to do something, that's what they did. But now you question that, somebody tells you you're going to do something, we'll check this out. That's why now everywhere you go, they want you to sign that you're going to do this in writing.
Mm-hmm. Trying to remember back to when I was a kid. Michelle, did you say this morning? We're going to talk about that in a second.
Jesus is truth. He says so in John chapter 14, verse that many of us have memorized. Jesus says, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Jesus represents the truth. In John 7, verse 18, it says, "The one who speaks of his own authority seeks his own glory, but the one who seeks the glory of him who sent him is true, and in him there is no falsehood." So when others rejected him for this truth, he never considered changing the message to better suit his listeners or to ensure that more people would respond. Jesus said people turn away from the light not because they think it's false, but because they love darkness. Think about that when you think about our interaction with people who seem to, like, you might be able to tell them the facts and your reasoning and your justification, and they still deny it. They turn away from the light because they love darkness. So, Phil, you're just talking about when you were a kid. And I know when I was a kid, we had this saying, this phrase, that if you were to bring out this phrase, or maybe one similar to it, that's how you knew that either you or your friends, they were going all in. This is how you know that this is the truth and you can trust me on it. I say, cross my heart and hope to die. What does that mean exactly? I never thought about that until this week. What was that, Dan?
If I'm lying, I'm dying.
That seems much more quippy than cross my heart and hope to die. Say, friends, if I'm lying, I'm dying. That's true.
When you put it that way, Judy. I could, yeah. There's something you can twist this whatever way you want, right? Or did anybody like cross your fingers behind your back?
Yeah.
I don't know if I actually ever physically did that, right? But that was like a playground type instance. Or this was a big one, right? It was so funny when I
first started reading the Bible for myself and I got to all of these oath things, they just hit me square between the eyes, because I would say things cross my heart and hope to die. That might be like when I would use, every once in a while. But the big one that me and my friends used was, I swear on my mother's grave that this is true. And I don't even know what that means. My mom was alive. She still is alive. So it's like, I don't know if it's like, this is like a future, situation that we're talking about when she does have a grave. That is what I'm swearing on by this. But then when I read it for myself, I was like, oh, I am so guilty of this, because like, what am I even saying? What am I even saying? Why do people feel the need to say stuff like that? Even when you're a kid, why do you feel like we need to somehow, prove to people that we are telling the truth?
Because their yes isn't a yes and their no isn't a no.
Yeah.
They're liars.
They're just lying all the time, and so they have to differentiate, like, when I'm lying, when I'm telling the truth. Ron?
Well, I say it's kind of like profanity. It's just to emphasize what you're saying, but you actually look at what you're saying. It's kind of stupid.
Yeah, a lot of this is very stupid. I guess that's why we leave it behind when we become adults. At least we should. Any other thoughts? Why do we do that? Natalie?
I think especially for kids too, they don't understand the concept of like, I have to have actions to prove what I'm saying. Like as an adult, we should know, like I don't need to say, you have to believe me, like I'm just gonna follow through. And then you'll know that, with whatever it may be. Because like Bridger all the time, like, I'm serious. I'm like, okay.
Oh, he's serious. Okay, let me. My kids would. They'd say like, "Dad, listen to me." It's like and be like, "No, Dad, listen to me." Like I don't know if that's an indictment on me and just not paying attention, or I'm like, okay, now let me open up my ears here. Like, let me really listen to you, because what you're about to say is big. Dan?
I don't think we leave it behind. I just think we morph into, to be honest, or if I'm honest, I hear that all the time and I'm like, would I want you to be anything other than that? Does that mean every other statement you've made is not honest? But you hear that all the time. Well, if I'm honest, then I wouldn't ask you that unless I want you to be honest.
Yeah. Or let me be frank. That one always deserves support.
Well, Jesus used to say that all the time. Truly, truly. Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
That's true.
You're right.
Stole my thunder.
Woohoo!
You probably got all 10 of those questions right, too. Anyways, pretend like you didn't hear that from me. When a promise is not kept,
It becomes a lie. I mean, there's so much tied up in this, besides, truth telling, and what is telling a lie actually is, withholding information. Is that a lie? Not, is what's the saying? A half truth is a full lie. When a promise made with a public oath is not kept, we call that perjury today. And Jesus would not be happy with these devices that we have created for truthfulness. I mean, imagine this, right? Like, we all view this as like, oh, those are childish things. No one's crossing their fingers behind their back, hopefully. No one is like, well, I swear on my mother's grave that what I'm saying is true. But that is what was happening in Jesus' day. Right? Like, look at these situations that he is explicitly talking about. Again, I'll read it again, verses 33 through 37 of Matthew chapter 5. Again, you have heard it said that it was said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king, or do not take an oath by your head. Like, he's like, let's just cover all the bases here of all these things that people take oaths by. And then in the chapter 23 one, we get another instance. It's like where people would say, well, you swore by the temple, and I swore by the gold of the temple, and so, who's really telling the truth here? Who's really being who's right? And it's like, this is ridiculous. It's like, so you have this hierarchy in their society of like, okay, if you're telling like most of the truth, then okay, let's swear by your head, okay? But if you really want to make an emphasis and maybe one up the person that you're arguing against, well, I'm going to swear by Jerusalem. It's the holy city of God. Oh wow, he's serious. Well, I'm going to swear by heaven. It's like, Jesus, it's ridiculous, right? Like this whole one-upmanship of what they were talking about, and which oaths were yours to keep, and how you could wiggle out of them. And Jesus he's commanding two things, right? Number one, that we not use verbal evasions to escape promise keeping. And number two, that we be so truthful that oaths are superfluous, that they're not needed in our lives. Jesus points out that everything you swear by has God behind it in one way or another, right? Heaven is his throne, earth is his footstool, Jerusalem is his city, and your head is under his control. That you're not the one deciding which hairs turn black or white or are even there anymore. We don't make those decisions. God's over all things. Phil?
Dogmatic about what Jesus said here, that they even argue that they shouldn't have to take an oath when they're in court. So we can look at what Jesus is saying, don't be stupid. But on the other hand, we can be stupid by pushing that too far.
Sure. The alternative that Jesus
offers here is simple, right? If you say yes, then mean it. If you say no, then mean it. You don't need to go through jump through every hoop and make sure that, how serious am I here, and what should I swear by, and so other people can know. He just says, just let your yes be yes and your no be no. The evil that ruined trust is essentially selfishness and ill will. We distort the truth to get what we want, even if it hurts others. And this goes back to what we talked about with loving our neighbors as ourselves, right? For truth to hold sway, love must hold sway. Right? Like this goes back to the golden rule. Treat other people the way that you want to be treated. Do I want to be lied to? I would say most of us, if not all of us, would answer that question. No, I don't want to be lied to. Tell me the truth. If I'm asking for the truth, tell me the truth. And so if I love my neighbors, then I'm going to tell them the truth too. If we are not selfish or unloving to others, we would not break our word or tell lies. Jesus is calling us to a different level of truthfulness. He's calling us to integrity. What is integrity? Davey?
A lot of people would define it as doing what's right when nobody's looking, but I think that a better way to define it is doing what's right no matter who's looking, if they are or not.
Integrity first. Doing what's right regardless of who is looking. Other thoughts? That pretty much sum it up. Do you have integrity? He wants us to live lives of truth down to the core of our being. So, Phil introduced this question. Jesus just said, do not take an oath. So should followers of Jesus ever take an oath? What do you think, Lee?
I just think about in the business world, contracting, different things that happen in the world, right? That, I'm going to sign for a loan. I'm going to sign for this contract. I'm going to make an oath on the Bible in front of the court. Those things are all still parts of this. And it makes it easy when your yes is yes. That's what it boils down to. If you can't have your yes be yes on that contract, that's what it boils down to. Now, I've seen why, where is this taking an oath? It's the same thing as a kid being a liar saying, cross my heart, hope to die. That's an oath too, in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you operate within the bounds of the world and still be a Christian? Well, your yes better be yes.
Other thoughts? Yeah, Marissa?
Jesus said to, give Caesar his taxes.
Yeah.
And so I think that this kind of is covered there. Like if we're expected to take an oath in court, we're following the laws.
Yeah.
And it's within reason.
Do they still have people put their hand on the Bible in court? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I solemnly swear to tell the whole truth. Something, something, something else.
Say affirm or swear now.
I affirm
Or swear.
to tell the truth.
There's
Do you put your hand on the Bible?
No, there's no
Well,
Bible.
when I was arrested last week,
You asked for a Bible, they didn't give you a Bible, man. One thing I really need to make this truth not to happen again, they're not gonna give it to you. Okay, I didn't know. I'm not getting arrested every week like Dave.
No, they don't, even when they swear in a Supreme
Okay.
Court judge.
I didn't know if that was
Oaths, but they-
I wonder when they went away with that. And probably early 2000s, I'm guessing. Rob?
I was just wondering if, maybe you should say, as far as I know, it's true.
As far as I know.
You could think something in your core is true, and later find out it's not.
Well, so here's the thing. As a preacher, I officiate a lot of weddings. And in those weddings, by the end of it, a person has taken an oath or sworn to do something like 5 or 6 times, right? And I always thought, like, based off of the verses that we read today, just how funny it would be if, like, you get to the, to the vows. The guy's like, I said yes. Like, do I really have to say it again?
Or, Rod, even as what you said, right? What if the person responded, as far as I know, as far as I know, till death do us part. Yes. Yeah.
Gonna love them forever, but
Yeah.
tomorrow might be.
Isn't that sad, Monica?
Well, I hang out with junior high kids, so I hear a lot of things like, this is my truth. You know, like that's a thing now. Everybody has their own truth and stuff like that. So, you know, that's really the problem, is that our world does not have an authority that is correct. And there's only one place to find the truth. And if you're not looking at that, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Or what I've heard the translation is, bro, I'm standing on business. Bruh. Standing on business. That's how I know. Judy?
So I think we're kind of talking about two different things here in a way.
Oh.
Because when we're talking about do not take an oath, and your yes and your no, and then you're answering these questions and you're telling the truth. But then when somebody had brought up contracts and things like that, like you have the Hippocratic Oath, and then you have different things in the legal world that are an oath. And I think we're using that word interchangeably. So I think those are two different things when it boils down to it. Because I mean, whenever you take on this job or whatever, I had to sign an oath to say, no, I won't talk about this with this and this division with this division. And it's not a yes or no thing. It's just saying, look, you understand these rules, you are signing, and we're calling it an oath. And so you sign that just like a doctor takes his Hippocratic Oath or hers. And so that's different than a yes and no, you know, swearing on this and swearing on that so that you believe what I'm saying. I don't know if that makes sense. It does in my head.
No cap down.
Okay. Maybe the question should be asked this way. Should followers of Jesus ever make a promise or answer a question with any other words than yes or no? There are exceptions in Jesus' ministry that would warn against saying that we cannot add anything to our yeses and nos. The most prevalent case of this, of course, comes from Jesus himself. Truly, or he would say truly at times, is used over 50 times in the Gospels.
Jesus would say something like, truly I tell you, and then he would tell them something. You would assume that if Jesus was who he said he was, that he is the Son of God, that he was God, that there is no truth, there is no falsehood or deceit in him at all, and so then everything that he would say is true. So why make this qualification here of him saying, truly I tell you? Jesus uses this before an utterance to confirm and emphasize his trustworthiness and importance, and Jesus' integrity should never be in question, but he still said it. One commentator had this to say, and I really liked it. He says, evidently, the use of reinforcing words do not have to flow from the speaker's lack of integrity, but from an impulse of love that the listeners need to be awakened to the absolute trustworthiness of what is being said, because they might not know how reliable the speaker is. There are times when I'm preaching when I will say, this is what we need to know. Or, the truth is, and then I'll fill in the blank. Does that mean that everything else I said before that or after that phrase was not true? No. But I definitely want to emphasize certain points of my lesson to make sure that my listeners are awakened and are prepared. And sometimes I'll even follow it up with a slide that says, look at this. Remember this. If you have been sleeping for the last 15 minutes, wake up, because this is what you need to know. And Jesus did the exact same thing. So it seems to me that Jesus' teaching aims more at integrity and truthfulness rather than a dogmatic control of exact wording that we are not allowed to use. Jesus' prohibition on oaths relates to the abuses of oaths that the Pharisees lived by. The principle is that Jesus wants his followers to be a people of absolute truthfulness and honesty. As followers of Jesus, we should be so upright and honest that it reflects the person of Jesus. So you might be asking, well, preacher, are you saying that I should tell the truth even if it's going to get me in trouble? That's what being a Jesus follower means. Right? Like, we are following him. Did Jesus tell the truth even when it got him in trouble or cost him his life? Yeah. So, how far should we take this? Well, we follow him. We follow his lead. Jesus told the truth even when it cost him his life. And so we should be a people that do the same. A people of uprightness and integrity. Do not take an oath. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Any comments or questions? We got a couple minutes before we are done this morning. John?
Matthew 5:33, that whole part where Jesus says, don't swear an oath at all, either by or by or by or by. We already covered that, but the implication is you're swearing on something or by something. No oath that I have taken in my life, and I've taken several, every time I re-up or promote or whatever, I'm not swearing by anything. Swear to support and defend the Constitution, blah, 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 so help me God at the end of it. I'm not swearing on anything or by anything to do that. So it's a very different thought here. The other kind of, what you're tying up, and how far do you take this in your integrity? The term integrity, a lot of times we hear that, do what's right when no one's looking, or do what's right regardless of who's looking or whatever. But you think about the structural integrity of a building or an airplane wing or something, integrity would be without compromise. There's no defect or aberration in what this either material is or how it is structured or whatever. And so for us, with our integrity, it is without compromise that when I say this, I mean it. We don't need to go further. If you need to go further for you to feel better about what I'm saying, great. But I meant it. And there's not gonna be any wavering or defect or anything in that. So it's uncompromising is the synonym that I associate with integrity.
I like that. It is what it is, right? And if you're saying that I am truthful, then that whether you like it or not, that is the truth. As far as I know. Rob.
I was gonna say also that we're told to season our speech, or salt our words, so there's a way to say the truth, but you wanna say it in a manner that you can't just say you're a sinner.
Yeah. I do all the time, but
you're wrong.
I get paid to do this. Jesus would say, no, I'm about to tell a non-truth. Paul would say, speak the truth in love. Right? And speaking the truth in love is not just in a lovely way, but also what the listener needs to hear. There's a lot to that. But we're not talking about the commands of Paul. We have a few more of these. I think there's 4 more after today, and then we'll be moving on to something else. But thank you very much for your attention, for your comments this morning. Let's pray, and then we'll be dismissed. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this time that we can dig into your word. God, help us to be challenged by this command this morning. Help us to be people of integrity. Help us to let our yeses be yes and our nos be no. Help us to follow the lead of your Son, who was uncompromising, who stood up for the truth and spoke the truth, even if it killed him. God, please be with us now as we enter into this time of worship, that our words, our speech, our singing might also be true of who you are and our thoughts and our feelings towards you. God, help us to worship you with pure hearts. Thank you for all that you do for us. It's in your Son's name that I pray. Amen.